This is the answer. You know, it's been really, really pleasant for me since 1975 when I joined Hippocrates Health Institute, is I can go to any place on the planet Earth, from the poorest people in the world to Beverly Hills and Madison Avenue, and tell people that they can afford to eat the most powerful, the most nutritious, and the most healing food ever researched in the history of science and medicine, called sprouts. But you say, well, I read all these studies on how this was good and that was good and that was good. You didn't read the right studies. So I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. Those of you that really just don't like to come to enthusiastic lectures but like to learn something. The most important scientist on sprouts works at a little organization called the Linus Pauling Institute. Linus Pauling Institute used to be at the Stanford campus when Pauling was a professor at Stanford. And out of respect after his death, they moved it to Oregon State University, his alma mater. I'm going to tell you a story about it because it's touching. I had the privilege to meet the man twice. I didn't know him, but he was a kind guy. I can usually tell when a person's kind. I look at their eyes. He was unique and rare as an intellectual because he didn't talk over people's heads. He talked from his heart. And when he was a young guy, he was one of the smartest, if not the smartest student that ever went to Oregon State University. And when he was moving into his third year, his mom called and said, "You have to come home, Dad died." And back then, there was integrity in families. And the oldest son took the place of the dad to feed the family. And he told all the professors, "I've got to leave school." And the professors panicked because they were great academics. They couldn't lose this brilliant mind. They saw what this kid didn't see at that point. And they said, "We have to find a way that you can support your family and you have to remain a student." You know what they ended up doing? He wasn't even an undergraduate. They put him in charge of training some of the classes for graduates. Oregon State University. Dr. David Williams, write his name down. Dr. David Williams is the most important man on the research of sprouts globally, but there are hundreds of others. I'm giving you now the important one. I write books on this. How many of you are doctors here or scientists? Well, the books I happen to write, you may want to read. They're an academic series called Food is Medicine. And I talk about the most significant out of thousands of studies that confirm not only plant-based, the power of sprouts. And when you think about sprouts uniquely, they are little seeds that can actually produce hundreds and thousands of other seeds. Isn't that amazing? If you have quadruplets, people freak out. How about if you were a sunflower and said, "I had 1,000 of guculets"? And every single sunflower has that. And can you imagine the power that that seed has? And you are taking hundreds or thousands of those a day and drinking them or eating them in your food. We're now taking you into quantum biology, the way that legitimate nutritionists are moving. Not talking about protein, vitamins, minerals. Interesting stuff, but old school. That's old school stuff. It's the energy, the power, the frequency, and by the way, the healing benefit we call phytochemicals. These phytochemicals are so stunning that the more we study them, the more in awe we are of them. We have never discovered a disease or a sprout that cannot address a particular disease. And every seed, every nut, every grain, every bean can be grown into a sprout. When you're spitting seeds out, don't do it. Spit them into a dehydrator, dry them, and sprout them. You're wasting the most powerful food we've ever researched. Broccoli sprouts, for instance, we knew the anti-cancer effect. How many of you knew about this effect? The sulforaphane. It regulates two enzymes, protect against any cancer throughout the body. Any cancer. And by the way, when you consume this before getting cancer, guess what? It's the most effective anti-cancer prevention ever looked at in biology. How about also looking at what we know. We can take the sprout if you have a wound, a burn, a cut, grind it up, mush it up, and put it directly on. Most effective healing agent ever researched and discovered. And by the way, it costs a whole lot less than the prescription you're going to get. And where's the medicine cabinet? On your kitchen counter. And when do you do it? In the summer, 12 months a year. And you say, oh, we can't get fresh food in the winter. Yes, you can. From your kitchen window, you can get fresh food. The one place in the world that was smashingly popular, a good friend of mine, we used to call him Sprouty. Back in the 60s, he converted his bus. You remember the buses with the peace signs? He wanders all the way up from the Pacific Northwest into Alaska. We thought he was going to go up for the summer. He didn't come back for 4 years. Because people never saw anything grow up there for 10 months a year. Became popular. And by the way, they did a little study, some competent, wonderful physicians, medical physicians, mainstream physicians up there, and said, my God, do you realize that in these towns that you've been distributing sprouts, the distribution of medicine dropped 35 to 40% from one act, just people eating sprouts.